It's another beautiful day, just so pretty out here. I love the changes of the seasons. Growing up in Missouri, one of my all-time favorite things about growing up here was that these seasons would change so beautifully. Summers be so hot, and by the time you get tired of it, go a little bit longer, and then it start cooling off like this. And kind of the same thing by January, you're kind of sick of the cold, but then by then it's when the sun comes back out and it starts heating up again. I love this. Seasons here are, I think, perfect. Last night, as I was thinking about today, to be quite honest, because I had a good friend of mine reach out to me yesterday, tell me to be careful, that God had warned him to warn me to be careful of what it is I'm saying. And I thought a lot about that. I really didn't have the heart to say, well, what is it? You know, I just kind of left it at that. I just got it in a text. I appreciate the loving friendship that he has to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that. I've lost a lot of friends over this, by the way. Not this Out on the Water, but just ever since I started this, really the Malachi series, where I was calling out the church, lost a lot of friends over that. And for some reason, it seems what I do makes everybody angry, makes non-Christians angry, makes Christians angry. And that's why I think it's right. It's good and right. I told him, I said, well, it'd be weird if it wasn't, because he's a pastor, be weird if it wasn't causing conflict and wasn't stirring up some sort of questioning. And I think a lot of times the problem with this channel that people have is a lot of times these videos are taken out of context because you preach verse by verse. And there's things that might have been said 20 videos ago that don't need to be repeated over and over again. But if you don't repeat them and somebody just happens to watch a video, there might be something they missed out. My guess is it has something to do with, he thinks I'm probably preaching salvation and works, which is not what I'm doing. I believe I've made that abundantly clear over videos. I just don't want to repeat myself, that if you are saved by the blood of Jesus Christ, and that is real, then the Spirit will dwell within, and then the Spirit is going to cause you to desire to do works. Faith without works is dead. That's what I preach. So just for clarity, I don't want to repeat that every video, but just for clarity. But as I was praying or as I was preparing last night, a little bit, I didn't prepare the night before. Typically, I just kind of come out here and roll. Last night was the first night I just kind of laid in bed and read. Mostly because I knew there was going to be this transition from Matthew 25 into the plot to kill Jesus. And I feel like, between Revelation and the Malachi series and going through Matthew 25, the separation of the sheep and the goats, it's pretty loud and clear. I don't know if we need to dwell on that. Spent a lot of time. I don't know how many times I've preached on the separation of sheep and goats. Maybe 100. I don't know. But I'm just going to pick it up where we left off, and then we're going to get into 26 because you'll notice an interesting transition between 25 and 26, and I'll point it out. But it's so incredibly important we understand what it is God did for us. He came here for a purpose, gave his only begotten Son to save humanity. And to save humanity, he just allowed humanity to kill him. He just allowed them to be their evil way. But he came here to die. I remember as a kid, or more as a teenager, kind of watching like Jesus films. Growing up, I didn't have cable. The VCR didn't get invented until I was almost driving a car. And, so we had 6 channels. One of them was PBS. And every now and then you'd catch the Jesus movie. My parents didn't take me to church either. And, well, they did, but it was just like on Easter and Christmases, and it was at the Unity Church. But anyhow, when I watched the Jesus movies, I always kind of thought, well, he lost the end? Like, it always kind of, and I think the way they made the videos too, that made it just look like he was this weakling that came and had some really beautiful things to say, and then they just killed him. The end. And I always thought, well, I wish the ending would have changed a little bit. I wish they had a different ending. But once I realized what he did, so beautiful, such an incredible ending, such an incredible thing he did, destroyed. It's almost as if the moment he breathed his last breath, if you can just picture all the enemy, the enemy with all their weapons, just imagine just the devil and all his angels just armed to the teeth with axes and swords and armor, and then just the second he died, it just ripped all those weapons out of their hands. It's an incredible act. Spiritual realm suffered in that moment. It was beautiful. But as a kid, I just thought, well, gosh, this guy came, said some pretty things, and died. So much deeper than that. He did it for you. Came here to do this. This was his mission. So I'm just going to pick it up where I left off. Revelation 25, verse 41. Then he will also say to those on his left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he said to his disciples, you know that after 2 days is the Passover, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified. Now, a couple things I kind of want to point out about that transition is that was it. Like, he had a lot of teaching to be done. While he was here, he came here for one mission. But while he was here, he was going to teach. He was going to teach people about the kingdom of heaven and how they escape their sin and how they heal people and how they raise people from the dead. Like, he was going to show them these miracles and show them what the Spirit is capable of. But at this moment, that ended. It was all over at that point. There's no more teaching to be done. That was it. Literally, the very last thing that Jesus taught on this earth was the parable of the sheep, or the separation of the sheep and the goats. It's the very last thing he taught. And then as soon as he was done, he says, now it came to pass, Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he said to his disciples, you know that after 2 days is the Passover. The Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified. And the fact that the Passover is very significant, that he died right around the Passover, because to look at that timeline, people, they twist that Easter message. They just twist it into something crazy, where he died on Friday and rose on Sunday. They've spent a day and a few hours in hell, in Sheol, bound. It's not true. He spent 3 days. He died, and then the sun went down, and then there was the first day. Then there was the second day. Then there was the third day. And then the sun went down the fourth time on his grave. And it was sometime that night that he rose. People have twisted it because they don't understand how the Passover played out and how all that went down. But he didn't have anything else to teach on. That was really it. There wasn't a lot to it. I wasn't gonna fish, but there is a bunch of water being stirred by me. I will say that I did buy a trolling motor last night. I haven't installed it, but I decided as I continue through Matthew But I'm gonna try to do some real fishing. It's hard out here in the middle. Not a lot out here, at least during the summertime. You know, I kind of reflect on, you know, my friend having a hard time and and I know my pastor friends are really struggling with these messages. I know they are. I really do. I know they are. But it's change. It's time to change. We can't keep preaching this idea that all you gotta do is say some magic words when you're young and that poof, once saved, always saved. It's a relationship. You know, when Jesus returns, if he was to say, I didn't know you, he didn't say, well, you know, I didn't hear you say these words, right? He didn't say, you know, I didn't see you go forward at church. Or he didn't say, well, I didn't hear you tell your uncle at some sort of camp that, you know, these words. He didn't say that. He said, I never knew you. It's about knowing him. I never knew you is what he said. And knowing Jesus Christ is very different than hearing about him and confessing some things. Knowing him is like, I don't know, it's different than knowing anybody else in the world. It's almost like I don't even know how to say what it's like because it's so different than anything else. You know, for me, knowing him, I know what he did for me. You know, if you were at war and your best friend who loved you stood in front of a bullet for you, or if you were a mom and, you know, there was a raft and you could only fit your child in there, but that meant you died. It's that kind of love, you know. And when you have that kind of love, when it's real and you know it to be so, the Spirit will dwell within. When you realize what it is he did for you, the Spirit will dwell within you. When you accept that gift and you receive it and you accept it, the Spirit dwells in. Not just that somebody told you a story and you thought, well, I want that too. And, you know, you said, well, I'm just going to do that when I'm 12. And because I know I shared with you that there was a day when I wasn't saved and somebody told me about it. You know, I didn't really understand it. I was about 22. And my boss worked in an electronics store called Brand Smart Electronics. They closed down a long time ago, but they were pretty competitive for back in the day. But my boss there, my manager there, he said, do you know if you're going to heaven? And I said, I guess I don't know. And he said, well, do you want to know? And I said, I do. And he told me about it. And I lived in a building downtown Kansas City at that time, and I got in the elevator, and I lived on the 11th floor, I think. And I was in that elevator. I kind of thought, what if this elevator fell and I died right then at that moment? And I prayed right then and there for salvation. And I think I was saved in that moment, but I didn't change. I don't think the Spirit dwelt within. And that change, that lack of change, like I went out and bought a Bible. But you wouldn't have noticed any change. If you're my friend, I would have told you those things were different, but you wouldn't have seen anything different. And it wasn't until I had my only daughter at the time, and I realized what that meant, to sacrifice your only begotten child. And I was overwhelmed with love in that moment. And then everything changed, and then it was real. It was real, and then the Spirit dwelled with them. And I share that story again because, you know, as we transition into what it is Jesus is doing here, it's his mission. It's who he is. It's why he came. And that, what he just shared with us, it's the very last thing he had to share. There's nothing else to share. I mean, he guided the disciples through his death and resurrection. And he gave them some instructions before he left after his resurrection. But his teachings, that's it. His teachings are over. I just don't think people realize that. The implications of all that. And I'm really not preaching salvation through works. You know, if you got that, you didn't listen to all the messages. But you can't have faith without works. Faith without works is dead. If it's real and the Spirit dwells within, you're going to desire to be about your Father's business. And if he can trust you with a little, he's going to trust you with much. And if he can't trust you at all, he's going to call you wicked and lazy. Say he didn't know you. So as we make this transition, I just really ask that everybody just kind of ponder what it is he did for you. You know, I've never known anybody who would be willing to do that. You know, a lot of my friends growing up, if I was in jail, they wouldn't even wake up at 2 in the morning and come get me. You know, when I was in high school, there was a point where I was in the hospital. I had to have an emergency surgery. My friends visited me. But Jesus does. He's always there. Always there. He came to die for you. You know, that sacrifice to lay down your life for somebody that you love. That's when everything changed for me, is when I knew what that was. And I think that's why this is so incredibly important, that we stay out on this water. You know, actually, I hadn't done the math in a while. I knew it would have been about 28 to 32 days was my guess. This is 35. This is message 35 out on the water. 35 days in a row on the water. And I'm so glad it's going to keep going. I don't want to just preach end times and preach what you got to do before you go to hell. I don't want to keep doing that. I like to preach some good news too. But God has me preaching when he tells me to preach. I'm thankful. So thankful we're getting into this next. I am so excited to turn this chapter into what it is Jesus did for you and me. It's incredible. To look at how it played out, to truly have an understanding of what Easter means, to truly have an understanding of who killed Jesus and why, who betrayed him and why, who let him down and why. I hope these videos are helping. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. If you feel called to support this channel, the Patreon, that link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, love guns.